Hello and welcome. We are going to be working with the Fast 5. Originally this worksheet was meant to be kind of like an exit pass where you complete these 5 problems on your own and then say how you felt about your ability to do these composite figures and what's the hardest thing about this idea. However, instead of having you do it completely on your own, I am making a video to help you out. So let's get started. We're going to answer each question, and be careful because they change from perimeter to area, the distance around, the area of the house, and the amount of wood needed. And they do get harder, okay? They increase in difficulty as we go. So the first couple hopefully won't be too difficult, and then when you get down to these lower ones. Now, in case you're wondering, I am not going to give you the answer. I am going to help you set up the problem. So if you listen to the video and write down the things that I mark, then you should be able to complete it, do the math on your own. Alright, number 1, calculate the perimeter. The word perimeter means to go around a figure. Now, when we're going around it, we don't really need to break it into pieces. You only need to break something into different shapes when you're looking for the area, because we have area formulas that help us find the area of these separate shapes. When we're looking for the perimeter, the key is to make sure that we have numbers on each side. So as you look at this figure right here, you can see we have 2 sides that don't have any numbers. You see these 2 sides? They don't have any numbers. So we're going to use the numbers we have to add or subtract and figure out what's left over. Alright, so here we go. We know this entire piece is 15, right? They tell us right here the entire length from this end all the way over to this end is 15. So you want to look at any other flat, long, left to right pieces. We have this guy up here, which we don't know, and then we have this little piece, which is 4. If the whole thing's 15 and this little piece is 4, how do we figure this out? You need to say 15 minus 4, and that will give you your answer to this piece. See how they're both the long pieces? Okay, so let's change our color here. And what about this guy? We're missing this one too. So how do we figure that? Well, now you want to look at your vertical pieces, right? Because this is a vertical piece. So you want to go on this side, and from the top all the way to the bottom is 10. We also see over here that this shape, this little piece right here, is 6. So to figure out what's left over, because the entire thing, if this little rectangle wasn't missing, this big rectangle would be a 10 by 15, right? So we're missing some. So instead of this whole line being 15, if we take 4 away that's down here, we'll see what's left over. If the entire length or width, whatever you want to call it, is 10, and we have this little bit over here that is 6, we could say 10 minus, ooh, that's a funky looking 10. Let me try that one again. Alright, here we go. So we have to say 10, oh, much better, minus 6, and get that answer. Okay? Now, once we've done this work, so once we know what all our pieces are, and you can do that on your own, I have faith in you. To answer perimeter, remember that's the sum of all the sides. So perimeter means sum of all sides. So we have to add up all our numbers. So we can start here with 10. We're going to say 10 plus, we have our 15, plus this number that you were supposed to find out on your own. So I'm going to make it a green little line right here. That's your number that I want you to find. Plus the 4 that they give us, plus the 6 that they give us. And finally, we have the number on the top, which we don't know. I'm going to mark that with a red line because that's done in red, just to give you an idea. Okay? So if you add up all those pieces, 10 plus 15 plus this answer, plus 4 plus 6 plus this answer, you should get your perimeter. Okay? So that's how you solve it. I have faith that you can do these couple small steps and then add everything together. You don't need me for that. If you need help, though, please raise your hand. All right, let's move on to this one. Calculate the area of the shaded region. So with this one, since we are looking at area, we need to make sure we see shaded region. This is very important because see all this gray right here? That's the only area they want an answer for. They don't want a 12 by 10 and they don't want the 7 by 2. They want this part. So whenever they talk about a shaded region, that's going to be subtracting your 2 answers. So first, do you guys see this big rectangle? So let's make this yellow-green. So we have this big rectangle here. Right? And that's a 12 by 10. You guys see that? Yeah, 12 by 10 going on here. So in the same color, I can write area equals 12 times 10. Again, I'm not going to do the answer for you because I think you can do this. You just have to have a little faith in yourself. All right, so that's the big one. That's not your final answer though. So let's look at the smaller one here. Let's choose blue. So we have this smaller piece right here, smaller rectangle, and that's a 7 by 2. So you can come over here, see here. So then my second area of the smaller rectangle is going to be a 7 by 2, right? Remember, length times width. Okay, so maybe that would help. Let me write that here because you really should write down the formula for what you're using. So our formula for this one, since they're both rectangles, you can use it twice, is simply length times width. Remember, when you have letters beside each other, that means multiply. All right, back to our problem. So our big green rectangle is going to be a 12 by 10, and our smaller rectangle is a 7 by 2. That means multiply. Once you get these two numbers, it's like we're cutting this piece out of the bigger rectangle. So if you think about a piece of paper and you want to cut the middle out, you're not going to add these two together because we're not putting more on top of it. We're taking something out. So we are going to take, and I'm going to write this down using spaces so you understand what I mean. We're going to take our green rectangle and we are going to subtract our blue rectangle. Does that make sense? Okay, and that's going to give us our answer. Okay, that's this answer right up here. So this is going to be the shaded area. This is how you find the shaded area, is you have to subtract the two. You're not adding it, right? If we were looking at number 1 and wanted to do area, we would find the area of this big rectangle and the little rectangle and we would add them together. Here, since we're taking a piece out, and they call it shaded region, so since we're taking a piece out to just get the shaded part, you gotta subtract. So find the area of the 12 by 10 rectangle and the area of the 7 by 2 and subtract them. Okay? Alright, I'm going to clear this out and we're going to move on. If you don't have this written down, go ahead, pause the video, take your time, write it down, find your answers, and then move on. Okay, let's look at 3 and 4. Number 3 says calculate the distance around this swimming pool. So when we're talking distance around, let's see, let's underline here. when we're talking distance around, that's the same thing as perimeter. That's what they want you to do, is figure out the perimeter around the swimming pool. So in this case, distance is going around. So we have a rectangle here and then a semicircle. So we've got to figure out the distance here. Let me get a different color. We have to figure out the distance from here to here, because that's going to be our diameter. Well, let's see what we have here. We have 1 inch over here and 2 inches over there. Now remember, like we did in number 1, when you're looking for the missing piece, you can subtract, right? So if the whole thing is 7, so you look for the same types of lines. These are flat lines going left to right, horizontal. So I'm going to look for another horizontal line, and I have this 7. So if I take all of my 7, and I take 1 piece off on this side, and then I take 2 pieces off on this side. Let's see, 7 minus 1 is 6. 6 minus 2 is 4. Very good. So 4 is going to be our diameter all the way across. We can then, because if we wanted to, just so you see, so if I want to go around, remember that circumference in circles, going around is circumference. So I come over here to my handy dandy formula sheet, and I see circumference is 2 pi r. Or look here, I have circumference equals pi d, so I don't even have to divide and turn it into an r. I can just use my second formula. That's why they give you 2 formulas. So d goes all the way across. See, they show you in the picture. So I'm going to use this formula. So we come back over here, and if we look, going all the way around, I'm going to change colors here. Going all the way around, I'm going to use the formula C equals pi times d. And the reason I'm using d, diameter, and not radius is just because I have my diameter. Be totally cool if you wanted to say radius is 2 and do 2 times pi r, because it'd be the same thing. So for the circumference going around, you're going to say, again, pi is always 3.14 times my diameter. Again, I'm not going to do the math for you. I bet you can do that. Okay, that to me was the hardest part, so I got that out of the way. Now let's look at this rectangle. I've got some missing spaces. Actually, I only have one, this guy right here. So if it's a rectangle, look on this side. There we go. We know that this side and this side have to be congruent. So if this is 2, we know this is 2. Do you see that? So let's see, I have my side here is 1. I've got this vertical side is 2. My bottom is 7. I've got this other vertical side is 2. I've got the top part is 2. And then my circumference is over here. Oh, you know what I forgot? This is not a whole circle, is it? It's only a half circle. So what do we have to do with this guy? Yeah, we got to divide it by 2. I forgot that. Huh. What do you know? It's a good thing I'm not a math teacher or anything, huh? Just kidding. All right. Trying to make the videos more fun so you guys will watch them. It's very hard to, not have an audience, be funny by yourself. Okay, moving on. That and my fact, my neighbors hear me talking to a screen with nobody around. They probably think I'm losing my mind. So, once you figure out the circumference, you got to divide it by 2 because it's half of the circle. And that'll give you this answer. Then for your rectangle, we're going to make our rectangle, let's make that back to green. We're going to say, okay, so for our rectangle, or actually, you know what? This will be better. How about this? Forget trying to do the rectangle separate. Just do it all together. So we are going to stick with green. We're going to have our 1, right? I'm going to start right here. 1 plus 2, because, right, distance around its perimeter, you add up all the sides, plus the 7, this long side, plus another 2 over here, plus the 2 at the top, this 2, plus the circumference. Well, half of the circumference, right, because it's a half circle. If you add all those together, you should get the distance around the pool. Okay? So 1 plus 2 plus 7 plus 2 more plus 2 more plus the circumference. So half of what you found by 3.14 times 4. Half of that should go there. So maybe that'll help. I'll put a little arrow right there. Again, your job is to do the math. I'm breaking it down for you, but I want you to still do the math so you get an idea of what's going on. Pretty soon you're going to have to be able to do this all on your own. All right. Number 4, calculate the area of this house. So in this case, I see 2 separate shapes. And when we're talking area, we need to break it into shapes. If it just says what's the perimeter, that would be easier because you just add up all the sides. But in this case, we have 2 shapes. So the easiest one, in my opinion, is the rectangle, right? So I'm going to try and do something a little different in this video to see if it will help you. So if I have, make sure we got our line here, I have my rectangle right here. You guys see that? Okay. So if I just want to figure out the rectangle, that's a 6 by 3.5. So I'm going to make a little rectangle so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So the rectangle is going to be area equals length times width, which is going to be a 6 by 3.5. So you just multiply it. And then you can tell me what the area is. Okay, now I also see a triangle at the top. So I'm going to pick a different color. And I have this triangle. Oh, still gave me a rectangle. I wonder if well, let me just erase it because I don't know if I can go back. Okay, so let's see, find a line here. Here we go. All right, so I have my triangle up top. Okay, do you guys see it now? Is it a little bit more obvious? That's the whole point of this, is try and make it obvious. If this is a rectangle below, right, it's a 6 by 3.5, we know that this side and this side have to be the same. So I know that the base of my triangle is going to be 6 because it has to be the same for the bottom half to be a rectangle. Now what I don't know is this piece right here, my H. And remember I told you your height can't be a slanted line, it has to be vertical. So instead of giving it to you, they have given you some information over here. If the entire height of the house is 5, don't use 5, don't do it, it's a trick. If the entire height of the house is 5, and this little piece right over here is 3.5, what's left over? What's this chunk right here? So that's, I'm going to do that math for you, but that's what you need to do to find out the height of the house, is you're going to need to say 5 minus 3.5, because you got to figure out, okay, well, what's left over? So just to tell you, you can do this in your calculator, but I'll go ahead and give it to you. 5 minus 3.5, well, let's see, a half would make 4, and then one more is 5, so it's going to be 1.5. So the area is, or I'm sorry, the height is 1.5. So now, let's see if I can get a triangle. I don't know why it's always upside down. Let me try another way. What if I go up? There it is. So I have my triangle, right? Kind of flat looking like that. So the area formula, and again, it's on your handy dandy formula sheet. The area of a triangle is half the base times the height. So 1 divided by 2 times the base times the height. And the way we figure this out, 1 divided by 2 times base, which is 6, times height, which is 1.5. There it is. Okay, so now you can give me the height of the triangle. Make sense? Okay, found my rectangle first, 6 by 3.5, so I just multiplied that. Then I had to do a little bit of math to find the height. My base was easy because it's a rectangle. My height, I actually had to do some subtraction because they gave me the entire height and then the piece of just the house part, but not the roof, so I had to subtract. That's where the 1.5 came from. Now you have these two. Because we want the area of the entire house, you got to add them together. But you see how you break it down into shapes? I don't have a formula that gives me this whole thing. There's no reason to break it into, you know, I don't know, 2 trapezoids or anything. Break it down into the easiest shapes possible. So we have this answer plus this answer. If you do all of that, you will get the area of the entire house. All right, I'm moving on to the last one. Go ahead and pause this. Write down information if you don't have it. If you have any questions, raise your hand, and we'll move on. All right, the last one, number 5. Calculate the amount of wood needed to build this deck. This is what we in the teaching world call a practical problem or a real life problem. Like, people really build decks and they need to know the area to know how much wood. Okay? So the first thing we need to do is figure out the shapes we see. Now you can see they cut, this would be a trapezoid here. I could cut the exact same trapezoid on the other side and then have a rectangle in the middle. That is absolutely okay. Not what I would do, simply because that's 3 pieces. I like to find as few pieces as possible to add together. Plus, you know, less likely to make a mistake. So here we have, if you cut it straight across, we would have an easy rectangle, 14 by 36, if we cut it straight across. And then we have our height at the top. And we'll have to do a little bit of subtraction to figure out what this height is, this trapezoid up top. So let's go ahead. I'm going to cut it into some shapes here so you can see. First, I have my rectangle down here. And you guys have some drawing tools on the test, right? You've got a highlighter and a pencil and things. So you can do this. You can, you know, color shapes so you can see what they're talking about. All right, so if I wanted to do my rectangle, right, so this is how we're going to do the rectangle. I need area equals length times width. So we have 14, we can make that the width. And we have 36, and we can make that the length. So to solve this one, you just say 14 times 36. Pretty simple, yes? And again, I'm going to let you go ahead and do the math on this. Okay, now we have our top piece, which is a trapezoid. Look, I almost made another rectangle. I learned from my mistakes. Okay, so Do you guys see this trapezoid right here? And then we have the base right here. All right. We know our base is going to be 36 because this is a rectangle and these have to be the same. Right? So we have here and here. When they put these little dash marks, that means congruent, aka the same. So we know our base is going to be 36. Is going to be one of our bases. Now remember, base 1, we can make this base 2. Remember, you have to have 2 bases when it comes to trapezoids. And then we need a height. Now our height, as you see this dashed line, that's our height. To figure out what this height is, let's think about this. We have the whole thing from top to bottom, they told us was 20. We know the bottom piece is 14. So to figure this guy out, if we take 20 minus 14, and I'll go ahead and tell you, that's going to give me 6. So that's going to be your height is 6. Put it over here too. Your height is 6. All I did was say, well, if the whole thing's 20 and the bottom the bottom part here is 14, you have to have 6 feet here or else you wouldn't have 20. And they told us that. So our height is 6. Now, it won't let me draw. Let me double check. I got arrow, rectangle, ellipse, triangle. Nope. Won't let me draw a trapezoid, so don't laugh at my picture, but I'm going to try and draw one. There we go, a little crooked there, not too shabby. Alright, so the area for my trapezoid is half the height times the sum of the bases. You got to multiply, or you got to add the bases before you multiply. Okay, so let's see what we have here. We have 1 divided by 2 times, what did we say our height was? 6. Times, now remember, you got to add first our 2 bases, and we have them up here. We said 36 and 20. Remember, it doesn't matter what you make 36 or what you make 20 because you're still going to add them first before you do anything else. Okay, so that's the area of the trapezoid. I'm going to let you do that math together. I think the only thing that you can go wrong here with this math is if you don't add these two together first. Like if you try and put it straight in the calculator, it's going to get all messed up. Also remember that this is multiplication right here. So put this, do your steps, order of operations, grouping, and then multiply. Once you have both answers, you add them together, right? Because we want the whole area. We don't just want one piece or two. We're not separating, right? Like at the question number 2 where we had to subtract. We want to add these two together. So when you do that, you get your total amount of wood needed to build this deck because wood would be covering, which is area. That's it. That's all I have. You guys need to do the math, figure it out. If you have questions, raise your hand. Go ahead. I know that you didn't do this on your own, but let me know how you're feeling, right? Are you like, I have no idea what I'm doing? Even when you explain it, I'm still confused. When you explain it, I'm so much better. I can do some even without you telling me how to do it. I can do them all, and I don't need to watch a video anymore. Like, which one of these are you? And then finally, what, if anything, is the hardest about this concept? So it's not just this last question. Any of the questions on this paper, circles, not circles, or anything at all that we've been working on for about a week now, what is the hardest thing? Is it harder to figure out the shapes? Is it harder to figure out the formulas? Apply the formulas? Like, I don't know what the letters are supposed to be. It's a lot of math, I'm not going to lie. So what part is hardest for you? And I'm not looking for a paragraph. Just write, a sentence or just bullet point what, a couple things on what you think is the hardest, just to give me an idea of honestly where to go, what to teach from here. Okay, that's it. That's all I have. If you have any questions, raise your hand, and good luck.